So let's talk about thought for a moment. Along the way, the mind, the self, and a number of other dynamics had this thing called thoughts. So you could say that the soul embodied part of itself, a ray of itself, into this physical reality, took on a body, took on a brain, and then farted. And those are thoughts. And that's actually pretty true. It came up with a thought. The thought was limited. The thought was based on a lot of beliefs and limitations and fears and things like that. So humans have become thought beings. Now, there's a difference between the mind and what it knows and a thought. The thought tends to have judgment and limitation and fear and anxiety, and after a while, with a long succession of thoughts, which really aren't intelligence, they're not high consciousness. They're kind of like little farts. It's the best way I can describe it, little bubbles. These little thoughts come out, but in such a succession or progression that pretty soon that you start to believe the thoughts, and you start to believe that you are the thoughts. And pretty soon the thoughts start to dominate, they start to control, they start to run the show. I contend that these thoughts actually are about as valuable as a fart, and they're about as insightful as that. They come from kind of a false interpretation of otherwise very true data. And the true data being, you're here on this planet, and put your hand on the stove, you're going to get burned. And if you punch somebody in the face, they're probably going to punch you back or sue you. It used to be we'd punch back, and now you just get a lawyer and you sue. So you have this whole series of thoughts now, and you buy into them, and then you send out another thought to try to control all these other thoughts that you really don't like. But what it does, it just merges with those other thoughts you don't like and becomes even more thoughts that you don't like. And then you think about, well, how do I get out of all these thoughts? And you have another one of those farts come out, and it joins the other smelly thoughts. And then in desperation, how do I get out? What do I do? I don't know what to think anymore. And that's when the human goes crazy. It starts doing very, very bizarre things. Because I contend that thoughts also take life out of life. They really do. They're the things that you negotiate with yourself with. It's one thought negotiating with another thought. It's like one bad flatulence negotiating with another flatulence. And they both stink. They both stink. And you could never get to the origin of a thought. But yet it's there, yet you act on it, you believe it, you think that it's you, and it's not. That thought could be also group thought or mass consciousness thought. It could be a thought coming from other people that you're just letting into your thoughts. Somebody else's farts joining with your farts. And they say, oh yeah, mine are really bad, aren't they? Well, no, actually it wasn't yours to begin with. It was just stink out there that you accepted as yourself. Now, it's not bad to have thoughts, and you're going to continue to have them even as a master. But you start to discern what are really your thoughts and where do they originate from? Do they originate from the true I amness, or do they originate from some communal consciousness septic tank? They're not yours. They're not yours. Thoughts are the greatest deception. And my dear master, teacher, friends, If there's anything that I'm going to ask you to teach about with others, it's that thoughts are truly deceptive. The biggest illusion of all, beyond all, is separation. Separation. You have an illusion that you're separate from your higher self because you've been told that, because you have bad thoughts, stinky thoughts. You have an illusion that you're separate from God, illusion that you're separate from the other dimensions. And when in fact, you're not. It's the illusion that was taught into many of you when you were young, that there's God. I don't care for so much. There's that God, and then there's you. And the illusion that you bought into when you got into the New Age, that there's the higher self, and then there's the little you. There's grand angels and spirit guides, and there's you. Separation, separation, separation. The fact is that these separations are just an illusion. Starting with the separation about you and God, you and your higher self. You start putting all these thoughts along with separation, and it's almost unimaginable how you get out. That's where people go crazy. How do I get out? That's where I say, allow. Allow. What are you allowing? Everything. And there's no negotiation in the allowing, because suddenly if you start negotiating, you're thinking, and that thought about allowing is just going to go, which is actually very limited at that point, is actually going to go and just gobble up other thoughts. So you just stop for a moment and allow. You're not allowing God or me or angels. One could say you're allowing truth, and the only truth is you.